Hi again. My name is Ronnie Frame from Linux, and okay, we're going to talk about how to accelerate using DPDK, accelerate an application like an OpenvSwitch. So first I want to mention a few terms that we are using. We talk about accelerating switch and packet processing. We call it ASAP squared. So we have a few options. We're talking about when we're using an SRIOV options. So it's called direct, and then we can run an OVS in the VM. We're running OVS on the server, and we can run DPDK in the virtual machine. Another approach that we call flex, because it's more flexible, that we accelerate the virtual switch with OVS DPDK. And another approach that's when we're using those kind of acceleration, when you have an FV, that's one to have like a switch acceleration when working as a virtual function on an SRIOV environment. So of course we are going to focus on the flex. Okay, so the concept. Every switch, virtual or physical, has a notion of a packet processing pipeline. So usually a packet lifetime is you have a classification. Sometimes you do decapsulation or VLAN decapsulation or VXLAN, something like that. Then you need to handle the QoS. And then you have a switch decision and you transmit the packet. This is a normal pipeline of a switch. So in the ASAP Square Flex framework, we want to offload the packet processing, but part of it. Because we can't do all the packet process, all the for traffic. That's what we do in the direct when we're using SRIOV. But we want to do part of it. It's harder to take into the hardware. It's to do the switch decision itself and to transmit. So that's, of course, we will let the software do. But we want to try to accelerate the classification, the decapsulation, and the QoS sometimes. Of course, the advantage of using an SRIOV, that's we can do everything. We can use a virtual function, VMs that in power virtualized, and that's the reason we're also supporting this approach. So exactly what we wanted to do. So each offload pipeline stage can be resolved in one of the following. So we do, or we change the packet in the hardware, or like do decapsulation, extract the VLAN, those kind of stuff, or we got some metadata to the packet. You want to classify on few fields of the packet and get the result, the classification. So you use a flow ID as classification, and it's a result for the classification, and the flow ID is coming like a metadata for the packet. Okay, so the software-based forwarding plane can leverage on the offloading scheme. So it can be you can use the metadata hints from the hardware to accelerate the operation. So we can do classify as every NIC on 5 tuples or even 12 tuples, which mean all the layer 2 and layer 3 and layer 4 fields in the hardware, and notify the data plane, the software data plane, on the classification result. So in order not to do the classification in the software, we can do it inside the hardware and just let the software what was the result of the classification as a metadata. It's come like the size of the packet, it's come in the completion. So the software data plane can now classify on the flow ID. So it's a single field, U32, that can be indexed to an array. That's, in order not to do the classification, you can get a single value that you can go directly to the array and to know what you want to do with this packet. Which to forward, where to forward it, or to modify any action for that to this flow, this packet. If the hardware decapsulate was used, the software need not to perform any actual decap action. So again, we can take a packet that is a VXLAN, the outer packet, the inner packet, we can classify it, and we can forward to the software only the inner packet. So we can, if it's a small packet of 64 bytes, so we can decrease the size on the PCI that is used. Because currently we have a limit PCI bandwidth, lots of the limits that we see right now. And of course, what the software will get a completion flow ID, so he know what is the VNI of the packets, and you don't really need the outer header of the packets. So usually what the software is doing is decapsulating and throw all those bytes. So we can do it in order to save the bandwidth on the PCI. We can also support the QoS by enforcing hardware like shaping, rate limiting for transmit socket, transmit queues, but I think that will come in the future. So our current hardware is that's available more than a year is the ConnectX-4. Support classification for all the field on the L2, on the layer 3 and layer 4, tunneling, VXLAN. Of course, we can classify on the inner packets, so we can have a full match on 24 tuples. And we can support different masks on the same time. So usually, most of the filters today can support single mask, so our hardware can support a few masks on the same time. The action that the hardware support is a drop, allow, a setting of flow ID, counting. We do have a lot of counters, so we can have a counter per flow. It's really required when you do a drop in the hardware. So in order to maintain an aging mechanism, you must have a counter per flow. Forward, of course, to a ring, or if it's a virtual function, it also can be forward to a virtual function, and incap and decap of a tunnel or a VLAN. So I want to focus a little bit of OpenvSwitch as an example for someone that's using today the DPDK. And so the current implementation today of OpenvSwitch DPDK, it's like you have a PMD that receive the packets. We're using RSS in order to have a few cores. And the DPIF, it's a part of the vSwitch D, is doing the classification for each packet and do the action to forward it to the interface that's you need it to. After, of course, you do the modification to the packets if it's required. So what we are suggesting is to use the flow classification. So for every obvious rule that is coming through the data path that have a classification X and an action Y that we want to do for that, we add a classification to the hardware with a number like say 1, 2, 3, 4 for flow X, and configure the software data path in order not to do the parsing. So if you get the classification flow ID 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the action that you need to do. So we split the obvious data path. That's the classification is done in the hardware, and we just need to do the forwarding in the software. Another very nice option is to do a drop, because if it's a drop, it's the most convenient place to do it is in the hardware. You don't need to drop it, to take it through the PCI to the software, to classify it, and to drop it. Of course, we can drop it in the silicon. And of course, we need to have a way to get statistics on that. So we try to use the current DPDK, a filter mechanism, and it's not suited for OVS because there are currently fixed or row filters. The n-tuple filters are limited. You don't have a filter that can classify in the 12 tuples, and there is no counter. So this is a 6-wind work that Adrian is working on. I think everybody is familiar with. So this is called a new generic API, flow interface API. The requirement will be that it will be extensionable, that will cover all the hardware. It won't be it's not even a vendor. Currently our current filter look like a silicon specific, so it will be more generic one that every application can use a filter, the same filter, not that every application, if it's working on this card or that card, you need to use a different filter. The idea of the concept is to define a flow. They did is to define a flow spec that is based on a TLV, type length value. So anytime that we need to have new fields or new things, we can define that. We don't need to break the API. And also the type length value is also used for an action. So we can have new actions like the flow tag action, a drop action, and a counter action. And maybe in the future, of course, the idea of TLV, that's we can have any action that's required. So you can, of course, go ahead and give some feedback to Adrian, that is doing a great job there. You can follow the full specification. It's a very nice and detailed document. And that's all. Questions?
Just wondering, how many flows or outputs in the system within the hardware?
Sorry, Mike?
So, two questions. One is, how many flows can you keep within the mailbox itself?
So, we're very flexible on that. We can support millions.
Millions, okay. Second is, you're basically coming in, you're going up, and are you basically using the mailbox as a switch then to go back up to the VM?
No, this is the direct. So we're using SRIV, so we can forward the packet directly to the virtual machine, to the virtual function that's used by the virtual machine. But in this concept, no. This is a DPDK application that is running, and the DPDK is doing the forwarding. It's OpenvSwitch DPDK that's doing the forwarding. So it's forwarding to the virt.io interface.
Alright, so yeah, so
I just do the
basically using SROV to go up, but you're not actually coming back down to basically go to the next VM through.
Right.
So
this is working the same as today.
Okay.
We're just accelerating the classification.
Okay. Alright, gotcha.
Do you have any performance numbers you can share?
Not yet. We have performance. We do have a performance for the direct, which is involved with SRIV, but it's not related to DPDK. It's there we got a very nice number of more than 25 million packets per second. That can be directional traffic that is crossing a virtual switch and going for a DPDK a VM with a DPDK that's to a test PMD of L2 forwarding. And that's we do without any CPU on the host, of course. But this gives you an idea of what's the hardware is capable.
See, I have 3 questions. So actually, I'm working for OVS DPDK with Intel. So the first question is this patch available on the mailing list? Is it submitted?
No.
No. Okay. So the second thing is, actually, we have submitted a patch similar to that using the port well flow director for optimizing the VXLAN optimization. So just want to know, like, have you looked at that, or because actually I submitted a patch in the mailing list and it's an RFC patch, so which is kind of a similar approach which uses the flow ID to do. I think you're using for the decap side, right? You get the packet and then you use ID to identify the VXLAN, and then you use that ID to do the decap without doing the mini flow extract. Correct me if I'm wrong. So is it the same approach, right?
Yes. I think this is the same approach. We want to generalize. We don't think it's a vendor-specific idea to do it.
Okay.
Already today you got the flow classification, the flow ID. I think in the flow director filter, but they are missing other things there. Like you can't classify on 12 tuple.
Okay.
And you can't work with megaflows of OVS because you have different masks.
Okay. And another question is, like, how many number of flows you can configure for the VXLAN in total if you are using 32-bit? I think it's a 32-bit ID you're using, right? So can I use 2^32 number of flows, or is there any limitation on your Mellanox card?
We're limiting for millions, so it's less than 32 bits, but
okay.
that's,
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Need to move it along. Thank you very much, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Thank you.